Is your business struggling to stand out from the crowd online? At Webamax, we specialize in turning clicks into customers. From SEO and PPC to social media management and stunning web design, we've got you covered. Boost your online presence and drive real results. Ready to take your business to the next level? Visit Webamax.com. That's Webimax.com for a free digital analysis. Rule the web with Webamax.com.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Now's the time to save 30% on wedding jewelry, only on BlueNile.com. Make sure your wedding ring is the one with your pick of diamond and lab-grown diamond bands, all hand-finished and graded for excellence. Or surprise her with something blue she'll love for life, like a stunning pair of sapphire earrings. Blue Nile's jewelry experts are available 24/7 to help, from fit questions to style advice. Right now, get up to 30% off at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are proud members of the Fans First Sports Network. That's fansfirstsports.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. You'll hear from my co-host, Tom, on occasion as well. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just longtime fans who love talking about our Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Rams Up Roundtable. I haven't done this in a couple of weeks. I got Paul Walia on board. What's going on, Paul? How things out in Long Island?
Double barrel ram horns out here on the Beast Coast, baby. Loving it, all things Rams out here. Weather's beautiful. Looking forward to the summer.
And Ian Martinez, what's going on, Ian?
Doing good, man. I mean, weeks fly by. Training camp is not that far away, and no kidding, Paul, about the weather. I mean, it's starting to get a little hot out here in LA. I like it. Finally, that weather tax that we Californians pay for finally starting to kick in, right? That's what we pay, all those high taxes for some nice weather like it's been this last week or so. So
yeah, I think I'm too close to the coast. It's still June gloom where I'm at, but it'll warm up soon enough.
Yeah.
So this is episode 39 on the YouTube channel. We're calling this our mini camp mashup. That was Paul's idea. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, though, not just the Rams mini camp coming up. A lot of things going on, a lot of little things, but we got enough to cover here. So last practice at Cal State, at California Lutheran, is that the case, or have they moved to Irvine? Loyola Marymount already?
You know what? I mean, to my knowledge, gentlemen, not that I know of, they made the move. I'm sure that'll happen in the coming week or two. When does training camp start? End of June-ish, around that time. I mean, July, excuse me.
Right.
So I mean, they got a couple weeks, 3 weeks, and look, right now at Cal Lutheran, for anybody who doesn't know, those buildings, our facilities were built from the ground up on the property of Cal Lutheran. They're temporary facilities that were supposed to only be up there for 2-3 years max. Now we're how many years? We're 8-9 years in, almost 10 years later, and we're still using it. And Sean McVay jokes about having no windows in his office. You know, there's all the funny stuff that you hear. And which also factors into those poor player union grades that we had got with facilities
Right.
and stuff we have talked in the past, because it's temporary. They built that in what, a month of time. So hey, I expect them to have something similar up in Cal Lutheran for maybe training camp, and I'm not too sure, but for sure they'll have 100% temporary in the Woodland Hills area where they're moving to, which will be the permanent home in a nice facility, crazy practice field, crazy fan experience when training camp is happening in the future. So shout out to Cal Lu. You hosted a Super Bowl champion. You hosted a multiple-time playoff team and tons of Pro Bowlers, future Hall of Famers. You did us good. Thank you, the Cal Lutheran shoe.
Yeah, and I have to confess, I'm a little bit confused about all these movements. The Saints are practicing, will be training at Irvine, the Rams at Loyola Marymount. Meanwhile, they're getting this Woodland Hills facility ready, and it's there's a lot going on. And yeah, they got to improve that grade. And when they finally get to Woodland Hills, I'm talking about that training camp grade that you referred to was not pretty, which was really surprising because the Rams, the class organization that they are, they got to do better. And I was really surprised at those grades. So, hey, Paul, you're going to make it out for one of these days, aren't you? One of the training camp days. Have you figured that out yet?
Yep, we're definitely going to be out there for training camp. So it's going to be exciting. Ram Nation, look forward to that. We might have to do like a quick spot broadcast from there. It'll be great.
I think we should.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We'll sync up somehow. I'm not sure about Tom. Tom's not joining us today, but for me, it's not a bad drive at all. Ian, he can surely be there. Tom, I can't speak for him, but we'll definitely give that a try and figure out. Hey, that would be awesome. Figure out a place we could do a joint broadcast all together. So joint practices I knew we were going to have joint practices with the Texans. And now, and that's going to be in Houston, I believe, before the preseason game, I assume that we have with them. Also with the Chargers and Cowboys, huh?
Yeah, 2 practices with the Chargers. So usually the joint practices, they've kind of varied. There were some times in the past where it was like multiple days. We've done it with the Chargers in the last, 4 or 5 years. I think because they're another LA team out here, so it makes it's not a hard commute for them to be here multiple days. But I think with some new rules, I might be not right on this, but I think that I might be, is that the joint practices, you get a full day's worth. I think because of practice stuff that's negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement between player union and the league. They're like, hey, for joint practices, 1 full day. It used to be 2, I remember, but I think it's just 1 full day now.
And the Cowboys will be in Oxnard, right?
Yeah, so the Chargers will be 2 days worth of practice of joint practices per Sean McVay. So that's pretty cool. We'll get a couple working. And again, because it's the LA team, they probably allow that. They're like, no big deal. Cowboys will be up in Oxnard, not too far away. I want to say that's maybe 1 day of joint practice. Might be 2, but I want to say it's 1. And then whenever we make the trip down to Houston, Texas, I think there'll be a day dedicated to joint practices. And everybody, I know preseason is fun. Our broadcast team does a fun job. I'm sure Whitworth will be back. It would be nice to hear him. I'm sure Siciliano will be back, former NFL Red Zone man, NFL Network host. He does a fantastic job. Shout out to him. And maybe Mina Kimes, she does a good job. And whoever else. Our broadcast team does good. We partner with all the local stations out here. But these joint practices are what matter most. When you want to see how the team is really going to be and how to feel good or to feel bad, right, gentlemen? How did the starters do against the Texans starters, the Cowboys starters, the Chargers starters, whether it would be full 11-on-11 game-like settings or just the one-on-one drills, right? Corner guarding receiver, our corners guarding their receivers. O-line versus D-line, 7-on-7, run game oriented, kickoff, which is going to be important, right? How is that going to work out? Field goal units. How did we do starters versus starters, 2 versus 2s? Because preseason it's watered down under the McVay era. We know that. Rookies are going to play and backups. That's it. So let's tune into those, Ram Nation. Let's, tap into LA Times, Rodrigue with The Athletic, whoever you tune into for these news, including us. And that is the most important time of the preseason, these joint practices, starters versus starters. So
yeah, the most you can the biggest thing you can learn from Ram preseason games is you got to pay attention to who's not playing. And if you see, like, for example, Jordan Whittingham not seeing the field in the preseason, they're telling you something. And us Ram fans know that means he's probably going to be a significant contributor, and he's already proven himself, just as an example. Hey, Paul, you were talking to me about the Behind the Grind episode 2. You were a big fan of that, huh?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I had to watch it a couple of times. I was so excited. Well, no one had missed anything. There were so many subtle references in the Ram Nation. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you definitely have to tune into that. There were so many great nuggets that we had mentioned earlier too, before this episode, but really nice job of giving a nice little window into what it's like on draft day and the Rams mindset, the relationship between McVay and Snead on draft day, all the other players. When I say players, I mean air quotes, the other parts of the team in terms of the brain trust. I think that was really, really nice to see. Letting the area scouts make the calls to the players.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was great. And you saw the responses by the area scouts, right? A little glimpse of what it's like to be a GM or an assistant GM. So I like that forward thinking, but just the way they were commenting, like, we talked about the whole Jared verse in 19, getting 8-bar verse. There it was right there in front of you. What I thought was interesting, and the three of us are here together, sort of impromptu, when they were saying there are 3 players that we had 11 votes from the various components of the brain trust. There were 3 players and only one's left on the board. And I was like, all right, who are those other 2 players that were actually ranked higher than 8-bar verse? And in my head, like the wheels started turning. You know how I am. I'm like, But so what stood out for me were a couple of things that they came away with based on their own rankings. The 2 top physical players they had at edge were 8-bar verse and Brennan Jackson.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And on their board, they got 4 of their top 50. So
yeah, fantastic.
That was just awesome from their perspective.
A+. I mean, gentlemen.
That sounds like some of my fantasy football drafts, actually.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You're like, I hit it out of the park, Jeez.
Well, what was really great when they showed up, and we had talked about it right after draft day, was when they had 8-bar verse call, get Knuckles on the phone, and cool. First of all, man, Braden, we're gonna have to change his nickname. Did you see him exploding out of his suit? The dude does not even fit in his suit.
Yeah, he's jacked. And real quick, just thinking about the episode and just replaying it in my brain. I mean, the trade up to Fisk was talked about immediately after round 1 finished. This wasn't like, we'll see how the draft falls. It was a goal from the end of night 1 on that Friday. And they executed it. I mean, you saw Sean being like, this would be a home run. And they pulled it off. Shout out to Carolina being a working partner in making this happen. Shout out to Tony Pastores making the calls. So everyone out there real quick. Everyone thinks the GM has he's the only one who can make a phone call. In the Rams organization, it's not like that, which is great. Do you not see in that Behind the Grind episode, everybody, how chill and relaxed and not so uptight the draft war room was? I mean, we're at the beach, we're California weather, LA stuff. I mean, I get it. That adds a little bit of relaxed, feeling, which is good. You don't want to be too tense, but you see clips of other war rooms, draft rooms in NFL. Everyone's silent, stressed. Only the GM and ownership and the head coach are talking. I mean, you know who those teams are. We see it every year. Ours, a working collaboration, assistant GM, head coach, position coaches, area scouts. Our money man, Tony Pastores, I forget his official position, but he's the one doing the numbers for all the contracts and everything else. He's making calls, and he was the one to pull that off. And you can see the excitement on Les Snead. That was probably the most pumped I've ever seen him ever in any clip of anything. Have up, getting the McVay, the stinger dap up handshake, right? The one where it's all your might, hand-to-hand combat, right? And that was a fantastic moment. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Paul. Apologies, but I just wanted to make
No,
sure if
that's
you
all right.
haven't watched it, everybody, please watch it for that moment I just described. Fantastic.
And keep an
Yeah.
ear out for that. They kept making that North Star reference, that guiding light reference.
Yeah.
And the scene that I loved was when they were talking about Blake Corum.
That's
And they were
really-
like, yeah, Blake Corum's still on there. And then they looked at each other. They said, oh, we got to do it.
Yeah.
And then they cut to some highlights of Blake Corum. And they had Blake Corum and the Michigan squad coming out of the tunnel. And who's right front center? The big dog, man. Blake the Great. Under the lights. I was like, there it is. That's why you drafted him, baby. And, he's like one of those guys. And, we just talked about some of the OTA comments, but there was a great article, man. They were like, nobody told Blake Corum he was supposed to be a backup. Like the attitude that he brought to the workouts is exactly right. He's not expecting to be a backup. He only knows one speed, and that's full tilt. And then
Perfect.
Let me ask you this, both of you. How much does Kyron's injury history have to do with that draft pick? Dare I ask?
Tons. Yeah. See, jinx, my friend, jinx. Tons.
Yeah.
Dude. Like, it's just, that's the reality. I mean, look at McVay and the staff and the McSneed, I was going to try to say, right? The combination of them, they have no fear of drafting running back year after year. Cam Akers, second round pick. Well, Darrell Henderson in the third, where we still had Todd Gurley and everyone thought his knee was fine. Obviously, it wasn't. But 2019, trading for Sony Michel, Zach Evans,
right?
Who else am I blanking on at the moment? Malcolm Brown, I think it was a decent round draft pick. I might be wrong on that, but we can go down the line, and they're not afraid to spend the capital because this position, based off just league history, it's the life cycle's short, man. And I feel bad. I played running back in the day, loved it, loved running the ball, loved the aggressive nature that you have to have. That's football 101, man. My strength and willpower against yours. I mean, that's the essence of a running back, is it not? So, hey, we've talked about it a ton. Kyron's been hurt 3 times in 2 seasons, and they've been for real injuries. And why not save the wear and tear? Because we need him in the tournament to win a championship. And I really feel like the way the Detroit game unfolded with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery kicking our ass that first half, they probably like, gosh, we don't have that. Because when Kyron broke his hand late in the fourth quarter, Ronnie Rivers was serviceable, but it's not the same. Let's just be honest. So if you can have 2 guys who are legit starting caliber, now Kyron, now Blake Corum possibly being the top 2 guys, there is no, this guy's out, what a drop-off. Was there a drop-off of Montgomery or Gibbs, no matter who was in there? No. So I think the Rams are copying that model because they want to win a championship, because they want
Yeah,
Kyron.
I think I knew the answer to that question when I asked it. And hopefully Kyron Williams embraces that competition and having a little bit of the load taken off of him as opposed to – go ahead.
And to that, Mark, I want to say Sean McVay, when they made the draft pick, before it was announced on television, obviously, and this is something that's good for our organization to do, they called up Kyron. They're like, hey, we're going to pick Blake. I don't know exactly what they told him, if that'll probably never be shared, but in the behind the grind, this is public in the video. Sean said, hey, talk to Kyron about it. He's fired up. He's like, that's pretty awesome. So obviously they had some dialogue before, Kyron's going to find out, watching the draft himself, being like, oh, they used a 3rd round pick on a.
Now, did they call Zach Evans as well? I wonder.
No. He's low on the totem pole right now.
Right.
He's probably
not. Oh, dang. Yeah, not good news. My favorite part of that Behind the Grind episode, and I had already seen it multiple times, is that split second where Fisk realizes, oh, I'm going to be playing with Verse again. And it's a pretty sweet moment.
That was his response. I'm going to be playing with Verse again. That was his, quote unquote, his response, right? That verbatim. Yeah. So, the other aspect of it is when you talk about the dual running back scenario is this, and people can debate it all they want. In the NFL, bar none, the position that I think requires the most talent is running back by far. Think about this. It is the only position on the field based on the number of touches where the person is absorbing that degree of abuse. 11 players hitting you on virtually every touch of the ball, right? No other position can say that. No other position can say that. And feel free to debate that because there isn't. There is no other offensive position that can say that. So running backs not only are by far the most talented on the field, they are also the ones that absorb the most abuse. And in the McVay era, if you think about it, I mean, let's go down the list. They experienced it with Gurley. They experienced it with Cam Akers, horrifically, right?
I mean, Darryl missed a lot of time too, on and off.
The Mississippi boys, when they had that running, right? We saw that, right? So it only makes sense, but the one position that's going to keep the machine moving is going to be running back for the Rams. I think whether you're a passing offense or not, it doesn't really matter. I think the Rams have come to terms with that. And whenever you have a chance to stockpile talent, it's always a win-win. Go for it. And to get a player of this caliber, which is the reality. I went back to the board and he was 72. And that was with estimates of the Rams not needing him, not making running back a marquee position. Yeah. Blake Corum was still 72. So that's just bananas. Right? So he was high above certain other running backs. We have our personal favorites, right? I always talk about Boyd Davis, right? But just think about this, to pound away at teams with Kyron, and I don't think Kyron's going to see it as a negative at all. He's like, this is going to keep me fresh. The number, and both these players excel out of the backfield, picking up blitzes and finding the red zone, just finding the end zone. So crazy. It's going to be great for this offense, and you see it already. Just the dynamic in these practices, you could just see these young players are bringing a lot of energy to the field.
This could be a really explosive offense. It really could be. So.
And real quick, Jomo, we're on this Blake Corum discussion. He was on the Rich Eisen show this last week or so. And Rich Eisen is a big Michigan alumni. And of course,
he was gushing. Did you see that?
Yeah, he was gushing. I mean, if you anyone who watched the NFL Network's version of the draft, which I tune into every year, I like that version a little bit more than the ESPN or whatever else one's going on. And when that Blake Corum 3rd round pick came in, I mean, Rich Eisen couldn't contain himself on the set there, because I mean, obviously, clearly he's a Michigan fan and watched every Michigan game since he was a student there, right? That's how it goes with former alumni with their universities. So he knew how Blake was a great, right, at Michigan, and how excited he was for him to join the Rams. So when Blake made the appearance this last week, and Eisen was asking, hey, what is your role going to be? Kyron said he expects to be a 3-down player, and nothing will be withheld from him. He said that he expects his role to be much more diverse than it was at Michigan. He's running more routes out of the backfield, being more involved in the passing game. So we're going to see how legit of a true all-around offensive player weapon he's going to be. Because we're going to throw it. You can't not throw it with a top 5 quarterback. Shout out to Chris Sims. I saw your list. Matthew Stafford coming in number 5 on his list. Duh.
Dude, what was he thinking? Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, even Blake is like, Matthew Stafford is unreal. I mean, even in that interview, you can find YouTube that clip as well.
And CJ Stroud, you heard what he said about Staff?
Yeah. He's the only quarterback I studied because he runs a similar system, right, to us. So why not base your game off the guy who's doing it the best? Duh. So anyway, I know we're getting sidetracked with Stafford, but Blake Corum's going to have a big role unless something happens, and he's going to be involved as much as possible. And I think that's good for the Rams, good for Kyron for his health, good for a Super Bowl run is what we need.
So what you're saying is Blake Corum will likely not play in the preseason.
I don't expect him to. And look, there's always rookies that play, right? Byron Young played last year, Kobe, Puka, but they played very little, and then they got yanked out, pretty fast.
Yeah.
Kobe does get I think it's possible, but I expect it to be minimal at most.
Two quick things also to sort of close out the segment is this. Number one, I'll tell you what popped into my head when they draft Blake Corum. No more downs off. When your running back goes out,
Yeah.
You got to sort of like take a down off or whatever. You go into the playbook, maybe try to find something. No more downs off. I think that's exactly what McVay is thinking. And it's, like I had said, my observations of the last 3 years, you definitely saw that with the offense. Like when that lead back went out, it was a totally different offense. And it's all about the continuity, that you're going to be able to run through the game regardless of down situation. You're always going to have to say, no more concessions. We can run our offense full tilt, full speed ahead. The second thing is in that same segment, Ram Nation, is that when they're doing that little huddle, when they're talking about Fisk and everything else, and I think it was Vito points to the board. He goes, these two guys, the last 6 weeks of the season, were tearing it up, referring to 8-Bar Verse and Brickhouse Braden. But he said it's going to be absolute carnage, right? And then they turn to me. He goes, yeah, with Kobe and Byron, and I love that term. It's going to be absolute carnage. And that's exactly right.
Hey, sticking to the draft, I was unaware of this upcoming documentary. I think, Ian, you brought it up, the Pick documentary. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Pick is in. So NFL Films, I mean, they have their own thing going on constantly. Shout out to them. They do a great job. I mean, golly, I remember growing up watching when NFL Network would have like top 10 little half-hour shows, great. Top 10 craziest plays, top 10 wackiest plays, top 10 longest runs, and they had like, it was NFL Films
best hitters. Remember they had that one, best hitters.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic. So they're goated, right? Like people like to say. And NFL Films is doing, I want to say it's called The Pick is In. It's a draft documentary similar to what we're doing. We're just doing it in house, but NFL Films is doing like a wide variety. So we're included in that. The Bears, the Commanders, and the Cardinals. So I think that comes out sometime this summer before training camp, I want to assume. So, hey, maybe there's some other stuff we probably did not see in Behind the Grind. Maybe not. Because the Behind the Grind is an in-house production. Ownership and Demoff and McVay, they got to go through that and be like, take that out. And not that NFL Films doesn't have to do that, but they can push that wall, that boundary a lot further of what has to be hidden. There's more things that they could reveal, So I'm going to tune in just like I did for Behind the Grind in any future episode. So look for that, everybody. I want to say The Pick is In. It comes out sometime this summer for training camp. So content
they
for us,
said
right?
The Chicago episode is lights out awesome. So
I bet it is.
I'm very curious to see what's in that one.
And now there's obviously some concerns about Stafford's contract situation. He wants more guaranteed money. I wasn't really surprised to hear that he's going to be in camp, though. I mean, to me, he just doesn't seem like the holdout type at this point in his career.
Yeah, let me jump right on that one because I'm still a little annoyed about AD's retirement. Not about AD, but just about everything that probably happened that led up to that. I know nobody wants to talk about it, but I will, right?
Yeah.
So, that led the frustration that led to AD's retirement, and I think Stafford's saying the same thing. He's like, listen, I don't know if it's so much about certain other things. He's saying, if you give me the guaranteed money, that's telling me that you're in to win it. No more, let's take these 2 seasons off. He says, I don't got that time in my career to take 2 seasons off, like what just transpired. So I think that's what that's the way I interpret what he's saying, is that, that's a 3-year commitment that we're going to try to win 3 more times, right? Whatever it is in the context of whatever that statement may be. And if the Rams are smart, they're going to read it the same way, because if they think Staff's done after 1 year, they're nuts. If they think they're going to find a player of his caliber, they're nuts. No. They better ride that arm as long as they can. This is a gunslinger in every sense of the word, right? Number 9 knows, Optimus 9 knows what he's doing. And you can look what the Patriots did with Brady, and when that arm does start to erode, everything, above the shoulders that Staff has is enough to win as well. Right. So, that combination, I mean, 3 years to me is being conservative. It's just a matter of
how long time in the NFL too, my friend. 3 years in the NFL. I mean, everybody out there, think what you were doing 3 years ago. I mean, you're a different person in a sense, right? I mean, 3 years in football years. I mean, 3 years ago, everyone was drunk off a Super Bowl, literally and figuratively. Not, so like that, and think about how the team has changed since then. So things will be drastically different.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Think you know the Brooks Ghost? Think again. Introducing the all-new, better-than-ever Ghost 16. Now with nitrogen-infused cushioning for lightweight, supreme softness that feels good every step, every street, every single day. So go ahead, take your daily joyride in the all-new nitrogen-infused Ghost 16. It'll turn your everyday miles into everyday endorphins. Let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
We are audiostack.ai.
Combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad. How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details.
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.
We are audiostack.ai.
Combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad. How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details.
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.
We are audiostack.ai.
Combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad. How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details.
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.
So they really should take this seriously and find a way to do it. And him showing up just shows you that that's what Optimus 9 is all about.
Yeah.
That's what he's all about. He's there to say, I am the exemplar, follow my lead. And everybody's talking about it. All the young players, that's all they talked about was staff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Rams got to get this one right, man. They really do. And they got to work out the money, whatever it is behind the scenes, and work this one out, because you got these young dogs that are ready to play. And they're lucky to have a trigger man like Optimus 9 ready to go. They just got to keep him healthy.
I mean, guys, Jonah Jackson are one of the prize free agent signings that we had at guard. He sat down with our media people, and he hasn't been practicing. There's been some lingering things he's been recovering from a long playoff season in Detroit. And he left a good situation in Detroit, which is crazy to say. Detroit's a good situation all of a sudden. Shout out to former Ram Brian Holmes for turning that around. Shocker. More Rams doing good things in the world of football, right?
Never let players or great personnel, regardless, go within your conference. Send them to the AFC.
No, I agree with that. But Jonah said his decision to leave Detroit, a good situation, was he believed in what he said, the wizard, Matthew Stafford. He believes he's a quarterback who has what it takes to take them to the promised land. It's that simple.
Yeah, and he's proven it.
Simple. And he's proven it and all that. So, again, with Stafford, pay the man what he wants. Let's get this behind me. He's getting annoyed with the questions from reporters. And I appreciate the reporters pressing, because a lot of times the media lets coaching staffs and players off the hook. So I appreciate the reporters being persistent, because it's like, hey, what's the update? What's the update? It's, it's a big deal. You're starting quarterbacks, this and that. But, luckily Stafford is not some diva. He's going to show up. He knows, like, hey, we're trying to win championships. I can't be missing practice and not being there for a new O-line, a new young running back, a full legitimate offseason with young Puka, a healthy Cup, DeMarcus Robinson getting first team. There's a Colby Parkinson going to be the new starting tight end. Another year with Davis Allen. It's important that he's there. He knows it. Coaching staff knows it. Ownership has to realize that. So it's like, let's just get this thing done before we report to training camp.
Yeah, and here's an interesting perspective on Matthew Stafford. You guys know how I like greatest lists and such. And great Ram quarterbacks, you go back to Norm Van Brocklin, Bob Waterfield, Roman Gabriel, Kurt Warner. And who would have thought 3 years ago that we'd be talking about Matthew Stafford as the greatest Ram quarterback ever? And he's got a shot at it.
He was another one, for sure.
Yeah, and he sticks around another 2 or 3 years, played 13 years, was it, in Detroit, comes over to LA and walks away with 2 Super Bowl titles potentially. It's I never thought this would have happened 3 years ago. But
and let me say this too. If Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer for two successful postseason runs, and look at Eli's got talent, but his teams were he was all right. He had good moments. Yeah. If he's going to be a Hall of Famer, if Stafford wins another one, I don't want to hear nothing about him not being a Hall of Famer. All right, that's all I got to say about that.
and just an extension of our a recent conversation a couple minutes ago. It's all about the 2-word load management, man. The same thing with Blake Corum and Aaron Carr, and Blake the Great and Aaron Carr. It's all about load management. Get them through the season, get into the playoffs, and then cut them loose. Yeah. Same thing with Optimus 9. It's all about load management. Listen, I'm still annoyed about it. Everybody knows out there in Ram Nation. So you got that gentleman, Jimmy, whatever, on the roster. All right, if you're whatever you're paying him, right? So let the big dog get a break every now and then. Let him sit out a game every now and then. Get him into the playoffs, and then cut him loose and watch Optimus 9 do his thing. And that's that should be the Rams' plan. And anything less than that, and if they fall short of that, that's on them, because something is not right. If they don't see that you got to get this guy into the playoffs, and everything else will sort of fall into place.
So let's talk about the Rams rookies and how they've looked so far. Pretty good review so far.
I think so. We talked about Blake in full length, so McVay said good things about him. Who else am I blanking on right now? Whittington, the receiver, he's been getting some first team reps, and that might be just load management with Cup or whatever else. But if they didn't believe in him, he would not be getting first team reps, because first team reps, everybody, are so valuable. There's no more hell week. There's no more 2-a-day stuff at all, where you're getting in serious practice time like it was in the not so far past. Practice is limited, man. That's what it is in the collective bargaining agreement between player union and the league. So that's all you always hear, man. Sean McVay always says, man, in our limited time, this, and our limited time that. So if they're spending that limited time on a rookie like they did with Puka was getting tons of first team reps. That's good news for young Whittington, the Texas star, who was an All-American in high school, broke tons of records, rushing, passing.
5-star recruit.
5-star with Texas. Sarkisian says he was the heart and soul of Texas Longhorn football while he was there. So, hey, that's good news. And Jared Verse, everyone says he's a maniac in a good way. Braden Fisk is as advertised. Byron Young, the coaching staff say, holy crap, they're so much more prepared and ready than we were as rookies. Right? And Byron had 8-9 sacks. Geez, Kobe had 8, 9, 10 sacks. So look at our high draft picks. And I haven't heard much about Kitchens. Maybe they've been mentioned. I just haven't heard anything truthfully, and that's okay. I'm not concerned at the moment with that. But to have 4 out of your however many we drafted, I'm just blanking on the number, being talked about really highly. That's good, because look, is everyone going to say nice things about their draft picks? Probably. But if you hear nothing good or you hear bad, that's not good, right? So it's better this way than the opposite, and it's all you can ask for till we see them in game action and those joint practices, right?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest unknown for me, is how the secondary is going to break out. What they do with the star position, who the starting safeties are. Is Russ?
I know you're hearing, real quick, not to cut you off on that, because now you're just popping ideas in my head. I think we heard Coach Shula say that Kendrick and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on names right now.
We got Yeast, we got Kendrick.
Yeast we're getting a lot of star role action. So maybe Kitchens is not ready to go at the up top safety, and they're like, hey, Quentin, we need you back there with Curl. And hey, well, whatever the best group is, whoever's the most ready, that's what we need week one, hitting the ground running. And things can change, right? Russ Yeast was starting a long time, and then John Johnson came in. So hey, we'll see what happens. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mark.
No, that's fine. I was trying to spur that conversation because I really don't know what the heck's going on. I thought maybe one of you guys did, but my thought is if Kendrick or Yeast can hold down the star position adequately, that really, it just makes our defense that much deeper, because Kendrick is a guy we thought might not even be starting, right? Gives us so much more flexibility with Kitchens and Quentin Lake. So yeah, I'm sure they'll figure it out. Any thoughts on that, Paul, the secondary at this point?
Yeah, I think from the fact that the Rams moved away from their usual modus operandi in terms of going after safety, spending money on safeties, and even the way that they're sort of configuring a lot of their free agent acquisitions for secondary, I think, number one, they're looking for a much more physical sort of presence from the secondary. I think that makes a lot of sense. Number two, I think the emphasis is going to be on versatility, no matter where they are on the field. Like, listen, the term disguising coverages is, off used in the NFL, with the progression of offenses, I would say that's really tough to say that you can actually disguise a coverage, but that is a major part when you do the heavy zones like the Rams do and any other team, right? That is a major part of it. That backfield rotation is super important. Right, because that changes from what we say the first look to the second look to the third look. So that's really, really an important part of that. So having guys take a look at the star, and I think the star Ram Nation, in my opinion, is also evolving. I think more and more teams realize it's not that it's not a challenging position, but it's a great position for players that have certain limitations, that do certain things really well. And what that is, super aggressive players that play well with the ball in front of them, that don't have to play a lot and have to worry about a lot of over-the-top responsibilities. They do well at the star, right? You could really feed, and maybe that's why they're trying to see if Kendrick can get some more quality reps there. Not that necessarily he can lock down the star, but it might be a place for him where he's less of a liability, right? And that's where Kendrick is just absolutely struggling, is whenever he has any over-the-top responsibility. Great example, Ram Nation, I know it's painful, it was when Kendrick on third and what was it, third and forever, and he gave up that big play in Seattle. Never should have happened. Ball was caught in front of him, make the tackle, Rams walk off the field. He gave up that huge play in Seattle. Really was a momentum shift. But things like that, I think, coming out of the secondary. They also think the joint practices, and before I talk about that, is the energy, just the approach. I think what the Rams wanted to see from these young guys, remember, the top two picks for the Rams were portal guys. Small school portal, wound up in big time operations D1. So think about that for a second. I think they wanted to see what is the approach. And listen, what's the first thing 8-bar verse said? Hey, no pun intended. I'm not going to say no pun intended, but it definitely is intended. He's like, I'm not going to dial it down. I'm not going to tone it down. I'm loud and I'm proud, and that's how I play, right? Even when it comes to offseason. Yeah. So that's exactly what you want to hear from the big dog. Mm-hmm. And the other part of this about the joint practices. So talking about the CBA, listen, they did a great job with the CBA in terms of saving the bodies of these players, right? Sometimes you got to save the coaches from themselves, that they run these players into the ground in the off season. But I think the issue is going to be moving forward. Look, they're definitely pushing for an 18-game season. We know that the owners are definitely pushing for that. And if the union is smart, this is the way they're going to attack it. You got to get rid of the preseason. I know there's a lot of money involved according to the owners in their heads, but there's no way. There's way too many injuries in the offseason, in preseason, way too many, right? And we all know that, because that's a frustrating part. I know for me as a fan, that is a hugely frustrating component of the season. Every year going to the regular season, all right, we lost this guy. We lost it in a meaningless game. And they really have to start taking a look at, all right, more frequent controlled practices, maybe move into formalized controlled scrimmages, do something to salvage these players' bodies. Because I'd rather see them play in the regular season. Preseason means nothing to me. And you can tell the Rams, the way they approach it, like many other teams, preseason means nothing to them either, right? And they just have to find a more, I would say, modern, player-centric way of approaching it. And I think controlled scrimmages, these joint practices are absolutely the wave of the future. That's the way to go. Oh, yeah. You know, and I just love to see it. And I love the energy that the Rams are bringing to the off season with these young players.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, 18 games is happening, isn't it? It's crazy.
It's there. It's happening. It's a matter of time.
And maybe 2 bye weeks, perhaps 2 bye weeks.
At the minimum, there's got to be, have that, set, what's the table of weeks that you could do. Maybe the first one, and then this set of weeks is where, it could be different for every team, obviously. The second bye. And they got to figure something out because you can't go 18 weeks in one bye. You just can't.
6 and 6. That's the way it should be. 2 breaks in between. Get these guys through the season. And listen, you got all these leagues around the UFL and everything else. It'd be fun to watch. Make that part of the whole equation. Oh, by the way, can we do Ram Nation? Can we all collectively send emails and say, come on, Snead and McVay, can we sign Puka's brother as a D-back already, man? He's already getting. Can we bring him up?
Something like that, right? Something with a P.
Yeah, he got nominated, right, for D-back of the year. I mean, come on, man. Let's bring him on the roster. Let these two guys play together. I think it'll be fun.
It's possible.
Hey, the way the Rams approach things, and as far as not playing guys in the preseason, I know a lot of teams do this. This is a question for you two ex-coaches. And it goes back to, remember a few years ago, the Rams came out for their opener. I forget who they were playing, and Jordan Fuller walked out there as a starting safety. And I think we were all surprised. We thought it was going to be Taylor Rapp, and Jordan Fuller was the starting safety. And that just goes to show you how little the Rams show in the preseason. Does that make it difficult? This opener against Detroit.
Season you're talking about, right? Against
I think it was
Cowboys on Sunday night, because we're like, oh, who's out there? And it was like, oh, who's because Jordan was number 32 before he switched to 4. So it was like, who's that guy with the neck roll? Because I remember he had a neck roll at the time. Like,
and he played really well. Yeah,
but,
and he made a.
But if we remember the coded McVay talk, he talked really high of him and Terrell Burgess before he had ankle issues and leg issues. He said, man, these two rookies are playing really good football. Leading up into the season, they were saying, hey, OTAs, these guys are playing great. Training camp, Fuller and Burgess for rookies. Wow. So, I mean, I guess we kind of knew deep down, but, you're never too sure.
Well, what I was getting at is, anyway. Yeah, but what I was getting at is, no Aaron Donald, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, this secondary, who knows what the Rams are going to throw out there. Yeah. They're not showing anything in the preseason. Is that a difficult challenge for a team like the Lions to game plan against a Rams defense, or are they just going to do what they do?
Yeah, I think people go into the preseason really more about it's all about like timing, efficiency, getting a look at how people react from like a situation standpoint, because everybody, that's the hard part. It's hard. See, here's the thing. It's hard to play if you're worried about getting hurt. They're like, all right, I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to hurt my knee. Right. Can you imagine being a running back receiver and running routes full tilt in the preseason? It's got to be in the back of your mind. You can't play football that way. Right. So a lot of these guys, they're not thinking about that because they can't play that way. So they're going full tilt. It's hard to tell players to dial it back, because when you tell them to dial it back, that's when they will get hurt.
Well, what I'm asking is it an advantage for the Rams going into an opener with the opposition not knowing how the Rams are going to run their secondary?
No, I don't think teams are scouting the Rams based on their preseason. I think they're scouting them based on their old film, their tendencies.
Yeah.
everybody's talking about they know McVay's tendencies. I think McVay knows that too,
Yeah.
that he has certain tendencies. He's trying to break certain tendencies, which I think is awesome, which is going to help him. But I think when they do the scouting film, it's based probably on. But there are tidbits that come out of training camp and
not so much
Yeah.
who's playing where. Just okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
maybe formations,
sure,
something like that, systemically. Looking at things like that, but. Yeah.
I think which will make the scouting easier for this matchup for both teams, is being truthful. The coordinators are pretty much exactly the same. I know Shula is going to have his spin on it, but it's going to be this Fangio new era-esque 3-4 scheme similar to Raheem. McVay, now that we're doing more gap, the passing concepts are pretty much the same though. That's an easy scout for the Lions. Now, Johnson is returning for the Lions, so our scouting for them is not going to be too complicated. Their DC, who I'm blanking on his name, I think he's returning. I don't think he's been hired or poached to anywhere else. So that scouting for us will be much easier because the concepts, the core values of what we're facing will not change, and that's really the premise. And then you got to do in-game and figure it out. But as the year goes on, obviously the game film will dictate how you attack teams. But for a week 1 matchup, you're just going off coaching tendencies of your opponent. And
right.
It'll be easy for us, and it should be, unfortunately, a little easier for them too, based off our last matchup this past January.
Everything they need is in that playoff game. Everything they need is on that playoff film for these two.
I agree.
Teams.
Yes.
Yeah, just having potentially five guys in the secondary, all in new positions, new guys, new positions. It should be interesting. So we had talked before we started recording here about the Rams, the history the Rams have made, being the first at so many things. First to have a logo on the helmet, first to play an African-American, a black player, first to draft an openly gay player, and the list goes on. And they have a new one, right? Paul, I'll let you talk about this. They have a new hire. Tell us about this new hire.
So they have formally hired a mental health clinician, a licensed mental health clinician, to help with the sort of the behavioral / if you want to say wellness aspect of the team, which I think is a fantastic move. According to them, and it's a Ram Nation. There's a wonderful segment out there on Rams Wire. Definitely take a look at it, where the person provides a nice little interview in terms of the background and the role. And and we have talked about it on the roundtable several times. And I just think whether or not the Rams are first or not, I like the way you sort of framed it. It's a matter of, for the Rams and for every team in the NFL to really understand. And I think McVay's comment was perfect. It's about giving every player the opportunity to evolve and become the best player that they are, but also the best person that they are. Yeah. And understanding when we talk about the grind, it's not just from the football aspect, it's from the human being aspect of it. Not only does it take a lot out of you physically, it takes a lot out of you mentally. And, over the last couple of years, we've seen that. We saw that with Darian Kendrick's struggles. We saw that. I mean, people are talking about it. And I think, in all fairness, they were really insensitive towards him. Stetson Bennett, upon his return, I think the media didn't handle that very well. So in all fairness, this, I think, is a great move on the Rams' part. It allows the players a forum, a vehicle on a regular basis to do check-ins, to just make sure that they're in a great place to succeed, but also in a great place to be who they are. Finding avenues to express themselves off the field, I think that's fantastic. Just the other day, I read, Whitworth took the whole O-line out to dinner, and then they had the clip. I'm sure, I know Ian was pumped up over it. A couple of Rams jumped up on stage at the country music concert. I think it was Puka and Willa and a couple of other guys.
Yeah.
So, things like that, and this just being an extra component of that, where letting everybody know that, listen, holistically, we want you to be in a great place, and winning is about holistically being in a great place. So I just think it's a really forward-thinking move. I know other teams have done it as well, but I just love the fact that, my squad is making that a priority and making these players a priority and making their families a priority, because it doesn't just impact one person. It impacts, the Ramily at large. So that's their own families, but everybody else that they come in contact with, and and for everybody else out there, Ram Nation and beyond, I mean, something to take note of. We have to move past this stigma that there's no shame in that. It's think about it. This is where it all starts, right? When in our own progression as human beings from in utero forward. So kudos to the Rams for doing that, and great job with their media department putting that up front and making it well known.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think I left out some first. I left out a bunch. Another one was they were the first to draft a Mexican player born in Mexico, right? Tom Fears. And there's a bunch of others.
Roman Gabriel. Yeah,
Filipino American.
Roman Gabriel, that's right.
Yeah.
And the Rams they do so many things right. We talked about a few of the things tonight. Letting these scouts, make the calls to these players, and they've done it last year. I don't know if they're the first, but they let their coordinator, they let assistants call the plays on offense and defense during the preseason. And what a great opportunity for these guys to get their feet wet. And they're just a great organization all around from top to bottom.
Thank you, Coach McVay. You saved this piss poor franchise for majority of my life, because it was bad, guys. It was bad. I was too young to remember the Kurt Warner Greatest Show on Turf. And then by the time my brain started to process football and the reality of different teams and all that, it was Steven Jackson and nobody else, right? And then Mark Bolger had a couple nice seasons, and that was it. So thank you, Coach McVay. Thank you, Kroenke, and everyone else for making the right decision, because everything we've been talking about for many years, it wouldn't be possible if Sean McVay wasn't leading the charge.
And Kroenke's another example of this organization getting it right. He stays out of their way, right?
Yeah.
He just writes the checks and lets them do their job.
And that's a fantastic point, is that, ownership letting the football guys handle the football part of the business, right? Look, it's still a business, but owners that are smart let the football guys handle, I should say football people. I'm sorry, my apologies, Ram Nation. Football people handle the football part of the operation. And I think that's important. It's made a huge difference. The presentation of the team is very, very different. There's certain nuances that we're talking about here at the Roundtable, which really make a difference. And it really does, just permeate the entire system. As fans, we feel it. We see that because, our families watch us. I've talked about this many times. We watch the game. I watch the game with my little girl and my son and things like that. So it's a big deal. It really is, to see that the franchise moving in a direction, like Ian says personally, to move in a direction that it's something that's forward thinking, that's modern, but also professional. And I think that's the key to really professional presentation. And you got to give the hats off to SK, the owner, man. What a great job he's done. And listen, SoFi alone, way to go. And now we got the new practice facility coming. So across the board, the future looks bright. So really like the forward thinking approach to this franchise.
Yeah, Kroenke does a good job. I mean, we won championships now with Denver Nuggets. The hockey team was the Avalanche. I might be blanking on that for whatever reason. He's won tons of championships. He just couldn't get the Rams one right for a while, and he finally did. And shocker, more championships. Good money making for him. A good product for us to talk and watch, and that's all you can ask for, man. Shoot.
Yeah, shame on me. I do not know how Arsenal's been doing. That's his other team, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'll have to join you on that one.
Yeah, I want to say I know a lot of English people weren't too happy with the Kroenkes. I think the son, I forget, I'm blanking on his name. He was who you see time to time. I think he had a lot of ownership power with that football club up there in England, and I think a lot of people didn't like him having the control because they weren't hitting the ceilings that they were hoping for. So, hey, you can't get them all, but I'm glad he got this one, Rams Nation. Thank you.
Yeah, and one more note on Kroenke before we get to our next item, and the LA crowd might not care about this. Maybe they would, but there's a a big real estate development, a redevelopment going on in the, I want to say, Midway Liberty Station area of San Diego that was going nowhere. And I think about a year ago, Stan Kroenke got involved, and the city is really excited now about what's going to happen down there. I don't think it's even started, but Kroenke's got his fingers in a lot of things.
Yeah, he's filthy rich. I mean,
I know
that's something the Lakers ownership isn't can't say right now. That's a different subject, different sport. But when your ownership's got money and money an issue, a lot of problems get solved. I hope some other LA teams figure that out.
So, hey, the last thing on my list, anyways, to talk about, and I'll start off with you, Ian, because this was you pinged me about this, and it was news to me. These about how the Rams are going to address the kickoff practices. Share with us.
Yeah, well, because it's such an unknown commodity in terms of strategy, player personnel, who you want out there. I mean, it's going to be probably chaos for a month out there for these games. It's going to be fantastic. Preseason is going to be chaotic too, I assume. And I think these padded practices, when they start up in training, these joint practices, which are fully padded as well. And obviously, everyone's not doing full barrel tackles to the ground like a game situation, but you're thumping, you're making contact. Like, you better be ready to rock or you'll get put on your ass, right? So those settings will really determine how this thing's going to go. That's when you really can strategize. Okay, this dude can't block this great, or this guy can't catch this great in pads, or he gets a little jittery because of the bounce and it's live. It's like, oh, I can't just let it go out of bounds and we'll get that penalty. No. You got to get that thing. So the full shebang with pads will determine a lot. And our coordinators, McVay, says the same thing. We can do stuff now, but until we get in the pads, we're really not going to find out. And until you go against other teams and how they want to attack you, join practices preseason, you're not going to see how your team does in those situations as well. So I think another thing to look forward to in the preseason, which I know, again, maybe the rookies and some backups, look how we try to execute the kickoffs, both attacking and receiving. I think that's something to really look forward to in this preseason games that we have, the joint practices, regular practices that it's open to the public. It's going to be in Loyola. Those are going to be things I'm going to be heavily invested in, because we were terrible on special teams for multiple seasons in a row now. And my God, we need that to be fixed desperately, or we are going to get killed in this kickoff department, I feel.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a learning curve for the teams and the fans because the rules are fairly complicated. You really have to
hardcore. I know.
Yeah, you need to steady up before opening day is what I'm saying. Yeah. How do you feel about it, Paul? How do you think this is going to go with the Rams and their special teams? There's one guy that I think is I'm betting on is going to be our primary return guy. How do you get? Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it better be him. That's all I got to say.
When they signed him, that was the first thing I said. I said, smart move. They're putting it in veteran hands. You do not want to put this in a rookie's hands. No. But I also think it's looking more and more when you talk about some of these respected special team gurus. They're saying that the way to go is to return people. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
I think that should be the case.
Yeah. Absolutely. And these and once again, I think it's interesting that the way the kickoff rule was really set up, to me, when I first read it, it wasn't really for the place kickers. To me, it was like these punchers with what we used to call the coffin kicks, right? Mm-hmm. If you really think about it, with the directional punting. So I think it's interesting.
And to that point, gentlemen, I mean, Ethan Evans, he's the type of kicker you want. You want a kicker squatting 400, 500 plus pounds, kind of bulked up, a bigger dude, because our coordinator said that, or I want to say, I take that back. It wasn't him. It was the Chiefs special teams coordinator who said, hey, we looked at every kickoff that was in the XFL and the other, minor leagues that are going on right now or in the past that existed, that the kicker was involved in like 30 to 40% or some crazy high number of the tackles. So it's bound to happen that a kicker is going to get face planted, stiff armed like Kyron's doing to Fred Warner in my background right here, and and it's going to break away, and a team's going to get scored on a kickoff. So good thing for us. Ethan Evans, like I said, squats a whole lot for a punter, like shockingly a lot. He's a bigger, taller dude, muscular. He's only going to get stronger as his NFL career progresses. So he's going to be the kickoff guy. He's been our kickoff guy. He's got a strong leg, and he's obviously going to have to work on the different clubs per se of where he wants that ball to be placed and where the Rams want that ball to be placed. But in terms of tackling, I feel good that he's going to be on the end of that because he's not a small guy and he's not a weak guy for a punter either. So I think that's a plus. That's in our favor because he's going to have to make tackles. The numbers, the percentages say it's going to happen, and I'm glad he's going to be there to do it.
I think you're also going to see the NFL has always had this over the last, I would say, a couple of decades, really more of an international flavor, and you're going to see a lot of these rugby players starting to find like a roster spot here and there.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be huge. I mean, it's custom built for them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think is something to keep an eye on, and I think the rules also going to change after a while. I see it more as a short-term fix, right? I think they realized that there was this like special teams, like it wasn't just the Rams. There were a lot of teams where the special teams were just an afterthought.
There was no kickoff return in the Super Bowl this last year. That's pretty crazy too, man. So they knew the change had to happen.
Yeah.
That's all I had on my list of things to talk about. I just had one follow-up comment. I think these Chargers joint practices with Jim Harbaugh trying to establish a certain mentality with that team, that could be a really interesting situation. I wouldn't be surprised if things got out of hand a couple of times. That's all I'm going to say about that, though. Any final thoughts for you, Paul?
I'm just excited for the season. I'm really looking to see how these young players develop. I love the way the Rams media is putting out these snippets so you can get a little bit of insights in terms of, the players, their thought processes, their backgrounds. I thought that was really, really great. So kudos to the Rams. Good job. And we, as a fan, love to see it. And I cannot wait for this season to kick off.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. What do you got, Ian? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, to your point about the Harbaugh-McVay joint practices are going to be like 2 days. Oh, that's going to be fantastic. I wish they would have had some tickets for that. I'll pay money to that over a preseason game to see any joint practice at all.
Let it get chippy, baby. Let it get chippy.
Oh, no, it's going to get – it's look, man, we are a multi-form smash mouth offense now based on the personnel we have on the O-line, based on the run game shift from zone to heavy gap. Harbaugh is a gap-only guy, it feels like, with a couple zones every now and then. And I think it's going to be some hard-hitting practices, man. Obviously, there's no tackling to the ground, but pads are going to be thumping on those couple days. And that's going to be, like I said, tune in to the news reports on those days. That's going to tell you a lot about how this Rams season could go great or maybe, hey, there's work to do. So I'm excited to hear about that. And golly, I just want game one to be here. I'm tired of the Lions talking crap on the internet. It's bothering me now.
There's no half speed on defense, baby. That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
I don't like to comment on offense. That's for other guys. But on defense, there's no half speed on defense.
Yeah, and Harbaugh's going to try to establish a certain type of vibe with that team for sure. So, and McVay, I can see McVay walking up to him, pulling the old Pete Carroll comment, hey, dude, what's your deal? As they shake hands after a practice one time. I don't know if you remember that with USC and Stanford. Yeah. It was pretty interesting. Going back a decade or two there. Yeah, hey, so let's do this again. Maybe next week we'll get Tom back. Hopefully we'll have enough to talk about. Things are going to start rolling here. And it's good times, man. Thanks for joining me.
All right, Ram Nation. Mind and body. Remember that. Mind and body.
Mind and body as one, and let your ears and your football knowledge pour into this channel. And let us know in the comments. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Helps out not just the channel here, but helps out for the Rams fans, every football fans be able to see any video that Rams Up podcast puts up. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Once training camp is on, it's on, and there'll be a lot of content from us in this channel. So thanks again for listening, and enjoy your summer. hopefully it's good. And hopefully next time we're here, we hear good news about Matthew Stafford getting a lot of money. That's what I hope.
Ramley forever, baby. Ramley forever.
Well said, guys. Out here.
Peace.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.